Yo, what up?
Hi,
What's up, everybody?
this is Shafi Hussein.
Murph from EliteFTS.com.
Albert Figurt.
I am Nicholas Cambi.
Dan Goldman.
Lupe Fiasco.
And you're listening, maybe listening while you do other things,
No, that's stupid.
watching
Listening.
Tuned in to Superfluid.
Super Fluid.
Super fluid.
And I hope you enjoy.
Me too.
Einstein might be the most famous scientist in the world, but he's not actually known as the smartest. That title might go to John von Neumann, at least in terms of raw intellectual horsepower, with even the most foundational minds in nuclear and particle physics and Nobel Prize winners remarking how he was 10 times smarter than even them. While almost no one alive today could match the mental firepower of von Neumann, the benefits of boosting your brain power are prominently embedded in society, with millions of people dedicating several years of their lives and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to colleges and universities to develop their cognitive abilities. Unfortunately, there's considerably less emphasis and explicit incentives on developing physical capabilities, which are arguably just as important. Fundamentally, they could be broken down into exerting energy to move yourself or objects in a gross or fine way. For example, you could lump things like basketball, baseball, or golf into precision movements of objects, gymnastics, flexibility, and agility into precision movements of yourself, sprinting, marathons, and jumping into gross movements of yourself, and Olympic lifting, powerlifting, and strongman into gross movements of objects. The geniuses in this part of phase space are somewhat less well known, but equally impressive, with individuals throwing around many multiples of their own body weight, moving cars, trucks, and even planes, and pressing several hundred pounds overhead, sometimes with just a single arm. Nick Cambi is one of these borderline superhumans. He has won the World's Strongest Man competition in his weight class and has held all 4 overhead press world records, and is currently in the process of training for the open division of World's Strongest Man. Just as intellectual giants work out of the most elite universities in the world, these titans train at Ivy League institutions of strength. Nick happens to train at Total Performance Sports, which is a renowned training facility just outside of Boston in Malden, Massachusetts. Its founder, CJ Murphy, has been a powerlifter and coach for decades, and writer on the premier strength site Elite FTS. Their dedication to improving and pushing the boundaries of what's physically achievable mirrors what I'm familiar with in academic pursuits at MIT. I was lucky enough to sit down with them at TPS and ask them about the fundamentals of strength sports, advice for novices, and what the future might hold for this field. It was motivating to hear from them and gave a more resolved picture on the importance of strength training.
Yeah, so
Intro? I'll start off. Nicholas Cambi. I'm 33 years old. I've been competing in Strongman for 10 years. I'm going on my 11th season next year. And I'm 2-time America's Strongest Man, 1-time World's Strongest Man. I've also won the first contest that was on ESPN for the 105 kilo class. And I've been a member of Total Performance Sports for 10 years.
You forgot that you hold all the presses in the overhead.
Oh, I do have
All the
I
records?
have a few records.
He's
So
got a couple of records here and there.
3 world records and then 1 American record in
You
the log.
also
but
forgot-
all the implements.
That you won a powerlifting meet, a strongman show, and a weightlifting
Oh, you
meet
like-
in 1 week. You forgot that.
Yeah, that was
That's one of the most
Murph
impressive
Murph
fucking
loved
things I've
that.
ever heard.
That was I won my pro card, won the weightlifting meet, and then won Massachusetts Strongest Man at heavyweight.
Boom.
Oh yeah, back to back weekends.
I didn't know that.
He
Holy
sells
shit.
himself short.
Yeah.
He really does.
He'll fill me in. He'll
And you
fill
didn't
in.
mention your handsomeness.
Oh yeah, that's it. Well,
Very handsome.
They'll see. We'll see.
And Murph,
My name's CJ Murphy. I go by Murph. I am the owner of Total Performance Sports in Malden, Massachusetts. We were voted one of America's 20 best gyms twice by Men's Health Magazine, Boston's Best of Boston from Boston Magazine, and a couple of other little things. I'm on Team Elite FTS from EliteFTS.com as a coach, and I was a sponsored athlete, but now I'm fat, crippled, and broken, so I don't compete anymore. And
Now you're a contributor.
I'm a contributor, yeah. I run my coaching log every week. Should go and read it. And that's the short version.
okay. And in terms of background, Nick, could you tell me, I know that you were a wrestler in college, I think. So
Sure
could you
was.
walk me from, high school up till how you
Sure.
got?
So I started in middle school. I was in like the 145 classes. Freshman year, we started to kind of pick up a little bit. And then from freshman year to sophomore year, that's where I hit my growth spurt. So I wrestled freshman year at 145. Sophomore year, I wrestled 189, 215. So I gained 50 pounds in over a year. And then I stayed at 189 for the rest of the time. Won a state championship, went to the New Englands, but fell a little short at the high school scene. So I still had more to prove. So went on to Roger Williams University. I wrestled 197 for 3 years, and then heavyweight my last year. And I had a pretty good run. I was the captain 2 years. I had 100 plus wins, placed twice at regionals. But my main goal was to be an All-American, so place at nationals, so top 8 or above. But fell short there. So I still had the hunger after coming out of college. So I think that would drove me towards Strongman when I originally got introduced to it.
It sucks
in
when you don't
2012.
hit a goal, doesn't it?
Huh?
It sucks when you don't hit something you wanted to hit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought bodybuilding was going to be that fix. So I got introduced to bodybuilding, and then the bodybuilding coach within a month showed me Strongman, and then within a few months showed me Total Performance Sports. And then I said, bodybuilding's cool, but I think Strongman's cooler.
I think bodybuilding's harder.
Yeah, I think it's so.
I think it's harder.
Why is it harder?
Diet.
The diet and the discipline.
Okay.
And, with Strongman, you're doing a lot of really cool shit that other human beings can't do. And you could be the strongest person in the world, but if you don't have the mental discipline to be a bodybuilder, that's really one of the hardest things in the strength world, I think. And the other thing is the training is miserable. Everybody's like, well, how did Strongman do that? How did powerlifters do that? But the bodybuilders are always just training to near failure, and it's miserable.
A little higher stakes. And then in the end of the day, Strongman is absolute. So you lift more weight, you win. Mm-hmm. Bodybuilding is a little more let up to the judges. Sometimes there's different judges have different biases. They score points differently depending on what they like or what they attribute to. So the subjective judging is sometimes can be tough on competitors too.
Okay. So Murph, could you give me your background, how you got to own in TPS?
Oh boy, I've done this one about 1 million times. I'll try to make it quick.
As fast as you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working as a personal trainer and a boxing.
And you're from Massachusetts?
I'm from Charlestown. Yeah. They say a guy from Charlestown will tell you he's from Charlestown within the first 2 minutes of meeting him. It took me 10. Right. So that's Boston proper.
Okay.
So I was working as a personal trainer in a couple of local gyms, and I was working at Rich Angelo's Karate Academy, running the boxing and kickboxing program and teaching some Muay Thai. And I was kind of running all over the place to Golds in Boston, Golds in Everett, and then back to the other gym. And Rich kept asking me, do you want to take over this business and take it over for me? So I eventually did. And then when I took it over, he told me, this little building was 2,000 square feet, and in the back room was 900 square feet. So the whole place was about as big as this room.
Yep.
And when we sat down and made the agreement for me to take it over, he said, there's not going to be any personal training in here, and there's not going to be any your powerlifting stuff. I'm like, all right, no problem. So, I don't know, 2 weeks later, I just canceled all my other clients, brought them all over there, and he's like, dude, come on, dude, it's okay. So, about a month later, there's a monolift in there and a reverse hyper, and it was turned into a powerlifting gym, but it was crazy because we had heavy bags in the middle of the room. We had a platform like this. It was like a monolift stuck over on one side, a reverse hyper, and there'd be 30, 40 people. Some people boxing, some people kickboxing, other people squatting 1,000-pound squats. And then I started training Strongman, and he said, you're not going to bring any of that Strongman stuff in here. And a couple of weeks later, there's 10 stones, and so it just kind of morphed into this thing.
Yeah.
And he was cool. He's a father, brother, best friend, like a mentor. So it wasn't like we were arguing about it. It was like, dude, come on. I'm like, come on, dude, And then the business grew and grew and grew. It was really just a hobby.
Okay.
I had a full-time job doing something else.
Yep.
And it just kept growing. And so I had to hire a full-time guy. Then I had to hire another full-time guy. And we expanded into our second location, which was 7,000 square feet.
Now, where did TPS come from? Where did the Total Performance name come from?
Do you really want to know?
Sure. It's just all new to me. So
yeah, so I couldn't figure out what to call it. I had some ideas, and I went online. This is like when the internet was really new. Like 98, the end of 98, I started thinking about doing this. So we started in January of 99. So I'm online trying to look up web addresses, and it seemed like all the really cool ones would take it, like Murph's Gym, Murphy's Gym. I wanted to name it House of Pain. That it's kind of dumb, but that was part of the day. But that was already taken, and so I made up a list with a whole bunch of different words, one on each side, and I just kept mixing and matching until I found one that sounded cool, and I was like, Total Performance. And I Googled it, and that name was there, so I named it Total Performance. Yeah, that's actually how it really happened.
No kidding. Wow.
So
stepping back out, imagine you're talking to someone who's a beginner and doesn't know anything about strength sports at all. People probably know CrossFit and powerlifting, Olympic lifting.
So
and-
funny thing about CrossFit, when CrossFit first started, I had a couple of guys came in the gym and they had a paper newsletter that people would subscribe to. And a couple of guys came in and said, dude, these guys are doing the exact same thing as you. I'm like, not really the exact same thing. This is like when I tend to say they first started, this is when they first started.
Okay.
And
back in like 2000 or something?
Yeah, we had really similar ideas on how to train.
Yep.
I wanted people, my personal training clients, to train like athletes and be ready for anything.
Okay.
Right. So I came up with the name Training for Life. A lot of people use that now. I think I'm the first person that started using that. I might not be, but whatever. But the idea was to have people be really fit cardiovascularly, really mobile, really flexible, really fucking strong, and be able to tackle anything. So it was interesting that you brought CrossFit up because when we were doing really similar things when we first started.
Interesting. Yeah. Now, I mean,
it's morphed into its own thing, and we've
Right.
morphed into our own thing, and it's totally cool. You know, it's
okay.
just we're really similar. People would compare us. Because I think these guys are just stealing your shit. I'm like, these guys don't know who I am. Your classmate doesn't know who I am, right? He's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing, and we're doing kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
You know. But
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah. So could you just say what's the difference between Strongman and CrossFit nowadays?
But there's nothing similar.
Yeah.
It's just lately the CrossFit has been dumping a lot of like strongman.
Yeah, they're
movements, but
dabbling
it's
strongman stuff
so
in.
of course you have the endurance aspect, and then you have like the max strength aspect. So we're almost on we're sometimes similar equipment, but on the opposite side of
Yeah. So
of
I
the
mean,
scale.
I think the CrossFit type of strongman is a lighter weight for more reps than, somebody coined it. Lauren Cohen, remember Lauren?
Yes.
Economics professor over at
MIT. Yeah.
MIT.
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to lift here. Was one of our training partners, really strong kid, but he dabbled in strongman, and he still does a little bit. But he goes, "This isn't strongman; it's fast man." So it's CrossFit. I think they're not using the extreme weights that competitive strongman would use. They're doing the similar movements, some of the same events, but it's a little different.
Sure. And how would you compare powerlifting to Strongman?
I wouldn't.
Okay. And why is that?
Completely different. So strongman. So the weight that a powerlifter might squat in an event is the weight that a strongman might squat for max reps in 60 seconds. That's fair, right?
Sure.
So strongman is a sport that consists of bench press, squat, bench press, and deadlift. 3 attempts, combined total of each wins in your weight class. And you lift once, you take a rest. You lift once, you take a rest. You lift another time, take a rest, and then maybe 20-minute break between events.
Right.
The strongman's not like that. The strongman could be, a complete limit strength event where you're doing a max hold for time, and then you might be doing log press for reps. So it's completely different energy systems that use in both.
So you have like powerlifting it has its standards, it has its rules and everything. And then what makes strongman unique, it doesn't have the standardization. So implements are going to look different contest to contest. Sometimes you can be doing reps, sometimes you're doing maxes, sometimes you're going to do medleys. So it's just the strongman is a very kind of randomness, and usually they try not to be too specified, too specific. So pretty much when someone shows up to the contest, it's usually the strongest man wins, not just someone that's really good at training events.
You need to be overall good at everything.
Right.
And powerlifting static, right? You're not doing things in 3-dimensional movement. Strongman, you might be running with something. You might be, so it's, and like I said earlier, that's what Nick's saying. You might be doing something max reps and then something heavy for one time. It's different energy pathways are used.
Right.
Powerlifting, you just lifting something really heavy once, resting.
Yep.
So it's a little bit different.
Okay. So when I started out in college, I kind of was interested in powerlifting in the sense of, it's kind of very tangible at the gym. I have a bench and I have a barbell, so I can squat and I can deadlift. For people that are interested in strongman, how do they train for that?
That's a good question. I think it depends on where you live, right? So if you found a gym like this, we have implements that anybody can pretty much use no matter how strong they are.
Yep.
We have aluminum farmers walk handles. We have a lighter weight yoke and a lot of stuff that's plate loadable. And if you have access to, to come into a place like this or like a place like Titan or something like that, they have, a good community and people help you. And if you don't have access to that, the best thing to probably do is just get basically pretty strong with a barbell and then, watch some videos and try to find some place where you can.
I think compared to probably when Murph started even incorporating strongman, that the barrier of entry for strongman has gone down. So it's much easier to hop into a strongman contest more than ever. So there's more opportunity to do contests, more gyms, more equipment, more even programs. if you're interested in doing strongman, but you work at a commercial gym, there are programs for that just to get strong. But what Murph was saying, you always want to have a good base in probably the squat, bench, deadlift, but incorporating cleans,
cleans too,
carries,
jerks.
Yeah, but you can almost get pretty imaginative. But a lot of times lately, the best strongman athletes are coming into the sport came from a different discipline. So you have, like, for instance, Eric Dawson was a basketball player. Always that way, you think?
Yeah. Yeah. When I started, there was a lot of throwers, and weightlifters, and there was powerlifters like me. But I was a weightlifter too. So, you know what Nick said. There's a low barrier of entry for strongman now.
Right.
When I first started, there was no implements. There was no strongman gyms. We had to either make or buy our own implements or have somebody make the stuff for us. You know, when you'd show up to a show, my first show I went to was in my buddy's trucking yard. And one of the events was arm over arm pull. Okay. And they didn't test it, and it was gravel. So when we got to the show, they tried testing it, and nobody could move the truck, you know? And I was pissed because me and Phil was smoking the event. We had a truck set up, and we had a flat lot, and we were smoking, and I was like, I'm going to crush this event first. You know, I never touched a log, never touched a yoke, never touched a stone before I went to that event. I had my friend make farmer's walk handles because we had a static hold. But we got to the show, and they pulled the arm over arm, and they put a yoke in there because they couldn't do the arm over arm, you know? And I couldn't move the yoke. Yeah. But nobody complained. Nobody cared. Yeah. You know? Right. If you did that now, I think there'd probably be some hullabaloo.
A little bit, but nobody cared, you know. But the access to the equipment wasn't there, and it was a very high barrier of entry. You had to be really committed to doing it.
Got it.
You know, and now it's somewhat easy.
So yeah, in terms of practicality, how would you start as a beginner in strongman? Do you just do a competition day one? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, but you could. Right?
Having a contest like lined up, it makes it easier. I think when I did my first contest, I only had one training day. I had one training day, and they're like, "All right, great, you did a great job. Now hop into a contest." And really, that's all it kind of took to get the spark, get the fire kind of going. Yeah. But really, you could just maybe pick a contest. There's novice events. There's different categories. Okay. So the weights are not going to be anything where you're gonna blow out your knees or hurt your back, but they're gonna challenge you. They're probably gonna be more high reps. The speeds are gonna be faster. Yeah. But there's different ways to get in. But pretty much, if you see a contest that you like or sounds interesting or is close or local or convenient, then you can just easily pick it and hop in. Okay.
So to build on that with novice class, because I'm actually the guy that started novice class. I don't know if you knew that.
Really?
Yeah.
Everywhere?
Yeah. I was the first novice. I had to ask permission to run a novice division.
Interesting.
And it was, the idea behind it was I come from other backgrounds as well as a boxing coach, and boxing has novice division. And I thought that, you know, we were one of the first gyms in this area, us and Highland Strength, which was Artie McDermott's place. Yes. We were the first two strongman gyms in the greater Boston area. Artie doesn't do it anymore, but we started out around the same time, and he was a great resource to go to because he was already competing, really good dude. And, you know, if you wanted to train strongman, there was nowhere to go except for our places. And so I decided that this sport is so awesome, let's grow it. So I talked to the people that were in charge of NAS, North American Strongman at the time. And I said, let's start a novice division where the weights are lighter, and it just lets people get a taste, right? And when I started novice, it was one and done. It's not like it is now where you can compete in novice for 10 years, but it was designed to be a low barrier of entry, right? So if the heavyweights in the open were using 300 pounds on a log, the novice guys were using 180. Yep. Just to get you in and dabble with it and get you involved in the sport. So interesting or not.
The popular or the most advertised people in strongman are maybe guys like Brian Shaw or Eddie Hall, and these are just giant human beings, like literally like more than twice my size. Is there room in strongman for guys that are like 150 pounds? Like,
yeah, they have lightweight divisions.
Okay.
So 175 is probably the lowest class right now. Yep. I think they just had the official strongman games, which was at Daytona Beach. Actually, the winner was from France. So it was the first international champion of the 80 class. The 80 class is relatively still kind of growing. Yep. It's not as mature as the heavyweights. The 231s have been around longer. They had, I actually looked back, the first Willie Wessels, you probably met.
Yeah, I know Willie very well.
So Willie Wessels won the first.
Willie ran NAS with his wife Dion.
So he won the first America's Strongest Man, 105 kilo. And then of course that was 20 years ago now. So that's been running for a while. So all the other classes are still are growing, but in terms of like the American scene, the British scene, they're pretty popular. So 80 kilos would probably be the more popular class, but some divisions will have a 155 class.
Okay.
Usually, but in terms of, for instance, anybody that's looking at any weight class, they can hop in and be competitive. But usually the 175 classes is the contest of the pound for pound strongest guys, the fastest, the most efficient people out there.
Okay. In terms of pound for pound strongest, I saw a video you made recently of being maybe the pound for pound best overhead presser.
Sure.
Unquestionably.
This stuff that you do is crazy. So just to say it out loud, log clean and press of 412 pounds, which is now an American record. It was a world record at the time you said it. Axle clean and press of 417, that's a world record. Block clean and press of 311, that's a world record. And circus dumbbell clean and press of 285.
So those are actual real world records.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about. That's like an all-time world record. That's not a local.
And what do you mean?
So in powerlifting,
Okay.
there's a lot of world records in different federations,
Yeah.
but it's all time. That's it. There's
No,
nobody's
I always
pressed
did-
more than that over
We
there.
always made sure to like do our research, like who else would do those records. But even when I was going to start teaching, I was really kind of well established. They were ready to be taken by like high level competitors, so they were kind of known along the land. But fun story about those records, I wanted all 4 world records at one time. And when I hit the circus dumbbell record, the week before, a guy from Austria broke that record. A week before I was going after the dumbbell. So if you waited maybe a couple of weeks later, I could have had 4 at all one time. But
I thought you did have them all at once.
well, but at least I can say I'm 4 for 4 for world record attempts.
Well, how many people could say they hold an all-time world record in anything? Never mind 4 of them, right?
Yeah, it's
But-
crazy.
But the thing is, I haven't missed a world record. So if I'm going after a world record, it's something to watch.
You're gonna get it.
Yes.
Yes. I'm on Team Cambi.
Yeah.
What did I tell you when you first came in the gym? Do you remember?
You told me that I need to join your class because you needed to improve my form and techniques.
It's close, but not exactly. So when he first joined, I'm pretty sure he's pissed at me when I said it too, but when he first joined, the guys kept saying, you got to go upstairs and see this kid. He's a fucking beast, but his form's awful. He's going to kill himself. So I just kind of watched a couple days, and I'm like, he's fucking strong. This fucking kid's strong, but his form's awful. And I had a talk, and I'm like, dude, listen, you're really strong. And I told you, do you remember? I said, you will be the world's strongest man if you learn some technique. You have the potential to be. I said that. I remember it. And he said, you got to learn technique, though. Your technique sucks, you know? And I think he got mad at me. And
I was pretty stubborn. Still stubborn.
he went out and he got some technique. And so I've been on Team Cambi since day one.
Well,
know?
it's funny because it's everybody that you taught me. So like Dawson taught me, and then even like Ryan Ruck was a big helper, one of my first training partners, and then Russ with anything powerlifting, suit related.
Yeah, you went to Yasha too, didn't you?
Yeah,
I didn't teach Yasha anything, but
Yasha,
so
Nikita, and Vasily.
that's a funny story with Nikita. That's a great. Should I tell it?
Yeah, sure.
So Nikita was one of my weightlifting coaches, and Vasily Durnev. Nikita Durnev and Vasily Polovnikov. They're Russian masters of sport.
Okay.
So I'm in the gym coaching somebody one day, and this little skinny blonde dude comes in with an old guy, and the little skinny blonde dude speaks Russian, doesn't speak a word, and he's eating like a whole chicken. And the old guy says, who is owner? I'm like, I am. He goes, he will work for you. I'm like, what? I said, I'm training somebody. I can't talk. So he will work for you, teach weightlifting. I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. I can't talk. So I go back to, and they came back every couple of days for about like a week. And I'm like, all right, this kid's being persistent. I said, what's his name? And he says, Nikita Durnev. I'm like, it's not Nikita Durnev. So I go downstairs. But I knew the name. I've seen his pictures in Iron Mind, right? I've seen his name in Iron Mind. This is back in the day, like, So I'm like, fuck, that's really Nikita Durnev. So they came in, and I'm like, you're hired. Didn't speak hardly a word of English.
And who is Nikita Durnev that you know of?
He is Nikita. Yeah, he's a Russian master of sport. So we really don't have a classification in the U.S. of that high of an honor.
What does that mean?
So you had to hit a certain like total in competition, a snatch and clean and jerk.
Okay, so is it
relative
Olympic?
to your weight class?
But they have it across many sports.
Okay.
Right. So he was a candidate. He was a candidate in judo, and he was I believe judo. It was one of the martial arts.
Something like that.
Maybe sambo. I'm not sure.
I'm not. Yeah.
But he was a candidate for master of sport. He was a master of sport in weightlifting, and I had heard his name and read his records. I'm like, shit. But I wasn't expecting this little, short, skinny kid. Because he looked like he was 12 years old, but he wasn't.
Right.
And so I ended up hiring him. He ended up speaking English really well. And he comes in the office and he goes, my friend Vasily I bring my friend over from Russia. He will work here too. I'm like, I don't have any room in the budget. And he comes in a couple of days later. I'm telling you, I bring my friend over from Russia. I fly him over. He lived with me, and he will work here. I'm like, who is it? And he said, Vasily Polovnikov. I'm like, he will work here. So they both worked here for a while, but he went out and he trained. And Yasha is a friend of mine, really good guy, great weightlifting coach. So he went out and he learned his technique from people, and now look at him.
But real quick on the story of Vasily, first time I was around 2014. I was picking up more of the Olympic lifting. They kind of moved on down to the Norwood Training Center. And they said, you should go down to Norwood because that's where Vasily is all. And I walk in there and he's snatching and he was doing a double at 200 kilos or 440 pounds for a snatch.
Like it wasn't there.
It was amazing. And that's why I walked into that's my first impression.
There's a video of him on an airdyne with, I don't know how much, 2 or 3 red plates.
On the bike, right?
Yeah, on the bike with 2 or 3 red plates, just pressing it over his head while he's pedaling the bike. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
So red plates are like 55 pounds.
Yeah,
right?
kilos.
So
and
like
what are they?
Oh, yeah, 55 pounds.
or something.
What are they in kilos?
25 kilos.
25 kilos, yeah, so that's 50.
55.
Is it, yeah.
And he's just
Like it's not even there.
Yeah, he was so strong. His lats, not like, I always saw like lats, and of course people lats big, but he was just thick.
Thick, and as erect as
Good.
well, like a piece of 18-inch steel pipe.
You know, he was very strong.
Good kid.
holy shit. So I wanted to ask you, Murph, when you saw Nick and you're like, oh, this dude's gonna be world's strongest man if he tries. Like, how did you know? Like,
I don't know. You just know.
interesting.
I've been doing this a long time. You know who's a competitor. You look in the eyes, right?
Okay.
So I judge people by their eyes. Some people are sheep and some people are lions. You know, and he had that. There was no quitting him. You can see it. He was training by himself with no quit. There was nobody standing there saying go 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 go. It's just you can see it. Yeah. You know.
And Nick, if you remember when you came in here, what were you lifting about numbers wise?
It's really far
Probably
back.
like a 500-pound deadlift.
So just about.
It was enough weight for me to take notice.
I deadlift wise from probably anywhere between, I want to say it was 2013. I started with 500, but I exploded into like the 700s really quickly, like within a year.
Yeah, but like,
and
when you
then I
first
didn't
came in
progress
here,
for like 8 years.
when you first came in though, you were somewhere around 500 because it wasn't enough that I was like, oh my good God, look at this, but it was enough that I'm taking notice of this kid that was 190 pounds, pulling that much weight.
No, I was like 220.
Whatever,
Probably. Yeah.
you know. So, but it was enough weight that I took notice, and I don't know how to describe it. You can just kind of tell.
Yeah, interesting.
So
Okay.
And I was coming down from like, when I was wrestling heavy, I was like 245. So I kind of like leaned up, post heavyweight wrestler, and then started getting the weight back.
Yeah.
So it was an easy kind of transition. But the press is what, I was starting the behind the back neck presses, and I got up to like 375 really quickly. And I was just doing that, but I couldn't clean and jerk more than like 265 from the front because I can only press from the back at that time, or split jerk from the back. I still didn't have like the mobility and the flexibility to press from the front. So that took a lot of work, and that's why I had to go down to the training center.
So the funny thing with the weights and strongman,
Yep.
it's like the 5-minute mile, right? So back in my day, like a 300-pound log was a big deal. It was a big deal. You know what I mean? And at my best, I jerked 365 for a single, and it was ugly. You know what I mean? And now there's guys in a 220 putting that kind of weight up overhead like it's not there in the log weights. And it's just funny to watch, you know, like we were talking about, like my first show was it was a 240 or a 242 stone all the way up to 365, and almost nobody could lift the whole series because none of us ever touched a stone before. But you know, then I was there when Fister hoisted the first 400 stone up at the Shriners at a Northeast Strongman Showdown. And then what are they lifting now? Like 600-pound stones or something?
Well,
550?
I think the ladies' world record now is around like 365.
But what's the men's?
Oh, the record?
Yeah.
The max record? 660.
Yeah, so they lift. So
No,
but
is it? No,
that's-
it's six.
Fucking Christ.
It's 290 kilos, so like 632 by,
Yeah, but-
by
so-
Tom Stolman, the two.
just so regardless, it's
yeah.
you know what Fister was one of the biggest humans I'd ever seen, and he picked up the 400-pound stone, and the whole stadium was on their feet because it had never been done before.
Right.
And this is probably in 2003, maybe something around that time. I don't
Yeah.
remember the exact year. So internet people don't be going like this saying it was 2004, right?
How is that possible? That's 50% more. Is that people getting actually stronger, or is the technique improving? Like how's that
resources
Yeah.
and the availability of the equipment, and then
Yeah.
there's when they start their strongman journey, there's going to be established coaches and resources, and then online and social media is of course
it's huge. The information there is huge.
Okay.
You know, when I first started, I would record on videotape World's Strongest Mans and watch them in slow-mo, watch the guys that were winning events. You know, and I did this all the time. Like my ex-wife would be like, "Are you done
So
doing this?"
for technique?
Yeah.
Who was your favorite?
Sven was my boy,
Sven, yeah.
but you know, John Paul. You look at all these old guys, and I would watch who won each event, not who won the show. I'd watch who won each event, and then go and who won the show. But I'd be sitting there and slow it down, watch it in slow motion, rewind it, make notes, and then go to the gym and apply that the next day. And there was nobody there to teach me how to do it. You know, we had to figure it out. But now, you know, you can go to an overhead press seminar with the strongest guy in the overhead press in the world and learn from him. It's easy. It's not. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's a lot easier to get good information now.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nick, what makes you such a good presser like that?
It's the brain. I think there's some sort of piece from wrestling. I think I always had kind of strong shoulders.
Okay.
So I think there was some carryover. One thing I think gets overlooked, I was a great log splitter and great at throwing around the sledgehammer when I was growing up. For the most part, it's just one of those events that came natural, so I really wanted to work at it, and then it just kind of exploded because I seek the help of the Olympic lifters.
Yep.
And it's funny because I did my press seminar yesterday, but it was a lot of the things I learned from Nikita, Yasha, and Vasily that I was telling these guys. So it was pretty much applying Russian weightlifting technique towards strongman.
And those guys are some of the best in the world.
They are, yeah. And I learned so much. But I always tell them, I even was telling my seminar people that the Russian technique is so much superior to
100%.
that of the Americans.
100%.
So if you're going to watch anybody, watch the overseas lifters. Don't necessarily watch the Americans. Like there's the Cal Strength is huge in the kind of the U.S. scene, or it wasn't for a while. That's when I was
What's it called?
Cal Strength out in California.
Okay.
It was one of the bigger weightlifting YouTubes at the time when it first kind of started. They had like a huge channel, but they all were into like the hip cleans. There's one really good lifter there, a good American, but they barely break into like the world scene.
There's
West
a difference
Kits is
there
pretty
too,
good.
though, because in Russia, that's their job.
Yes.
You know, they don't do anything else. So it's a little different if you're the Russian weightlifters, the Russian athletes. That's their job. They're sponsored by the Russian government to do it, so they don't have to worry about getting up and going to work and having time for their training. I think if we kind of talked about this a little bit off camera, not to interrupt, right? But
No.
if the American athletes, like if the government subsidized him to be a strongman, he might have a 500-pound press because he doesn't have, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's the technique is arguably far better,
Sure. And
but
then
the training circumstances are arguably far better too.
There's no American football. There's no NBA in Russia, so all their best athletes
Right.
are going to weightlift.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. More about pressing. So powerlifting,
Pressing,
you have
yes.
bench press, and from what I know,
Stupidest exercise ever.
I actually agree, and
I
know Strongman has. I don't know that there's benching in Strongman.
I've only done one. I've done one bench
Okay.
event.
Really?
And that was in 2013 with Matt Mills' show down in Lightning Fitness. We had an incline log press.
That's not a bench event, but yeah.
But that's the closest that we had.
So the question is, why is there this division? You know, powerlifters are like, oh, what do you bench? What do you bench? And then Strongman is all overhead pressing. Could you just talk about the two exercises, like how similar they are?
There's nothing similar about them other than that your arms do this. You know, bench press is probably the most complicated thing that you can do with a barbell from a competitive standpoint. You know, if you're a competitive power lifter, especially an equipped lifter, it's the most technical thing. You're doing 35 things at once. And if you're equipped, if you do one thing wrong by this much, that bar's coming down.
And equipped means when you're wearing the
shirt.
suits.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, so it's a lot of, not that there's not a lot of technique with the overhead press, but the bench press is it's a full body lift. People don't understand that. You're lifting from your toes all the way up to your ears. But you're laying on your back, you try to hold an arch, and you're trying to do a whole bunch of different things, drive your knees out, squeeze your butt, pull your shoulder blades down and back, stretch the bar, bend the bar.
Yep.
It's a lot, and it takes a long time to get good at it.
Right.
And it doesn't really carry over to anything. You know what I mean? I know guys that can bench 500 pounds that can't press 225 overhead.
Really?
But I know guys that can press 315 overhead that can win a bench 400 without even blinking an eye.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not the most functional movement, but yeah, overhead's probably a little more function.
It's more functional, more carryover to true real strength. And that's taking nothing away from the bench press because I compete in both sports. I've won the nationals in powerlifting. I love them both equally, but it's just bench press is not functional. And I don't really think it's coming from a shitty bencher. I don't really think it's a good test of functional strength, and that's not the same. So you want to talk about the press?
So I always think that there's the overhead. I always thought like big shoulders were cooler than kind of like the chest, but for the most part, yeah, you never really,
you want those doorway wide shoulders.
Yeah, but no one really ever asks like how much do you overhead. It's always like how much you bench.
Exactly.
But yeah, just pretty much it's just gonna be more functional, and I think there's just so many different items that you can press. So bench press, you're just either doing barbell or dumbbells, but overhead is the sky's the limit, right? And then you can pretty much even increase your overhead by just improving your technique, not even getting that much stronger, and that depends on the actual implement. So
yeah, overhead has a ton of technique too. Not to, when I said the bench is the most complicated, there's a lot of technique with overhead. It's just I don't think there's as much.
And I think my draw just to the overhead is just the variety, all the different implements, and just it's always changing. So it's
cooler too.
Yeah, I enjoy it much more.
Yeah. So when I've benched, I get a lot of pain in various parts of my shoulder and whatever. When I'm overhead pressing, everything's totally fine. Have you experienced any injuries with overhead pressing?
Now the shoulders. Most of my injuries lately have just been coming from other events, more either static events or just not doing a good job in terms of recovery. But yeah, I've never had any injuries in terms of press. So like whenever time I'm coming back from getting back into shape or anything like that, I'm always going heavy pressing, but everything else I'm staying pretty low. But yeah, I've never really in terms of my shoulders, yeah, they've been staying pretty healthy.
Okay.
So that's a big misnomer where it's been going on for decades in the lifting community, where the overhead press is bad for your shoulders. And I've watched videos of people telling me they're bad for your shoulders. I'm like, well, you don't know how to fucking overhead press. If you learn how to overhead press properly, it's really not bad for your shoulders at all. It's probably pretty good for your shoulders.
Right.
But most people don't do it right. They do this shitty nonsense where the bar's here and out here and their elbows are down and they force it up like that, or they crank way back and they're not. You know, you got to get those elbows up to relieve the pressure inside the capsule. I'm getting a little bit too technical, but people that say it's bad for you, they don't know how to do it.
Right. Okay.
And I always say even like the rack position. This way, I'm a huge proponent of the rack position within my seminars. Changing the rack position can even help your overhead.
And
press.
rack is when you're like this?
By 20, maybe like 30% or better.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just a note on tpsmethod.com. Go on. We just put up the front rack seminar. tpsmethod.com. Join it. It's about a 45-minute seminar for improving front rack. You should take some stuff out of that and put it in.
I have a front rack video. That's my most popular video on YouTube.
Steal some of this shit. You'll love it.
What's TPS Method? Just say more about
that. So tpsmethod.com is my website. You can get a free trial at tpsmethod.com. We offer powerlifting programs for raw and equipped. We offer training for life programs. We talked earlier about the CrossFit comparison. It's not CrossFit. It's my own style of training, but we call it training for life. Couple of years of programming on there. There's I don't know how many hours of seminars. Nick Cambi's overhead press, win the show seminar is on there. We have thousands of videos on exercise technique, and we have a highly moderated forum where you can get online coaching by uploading your video. And one of the coaches that works here full-time, an actual coach, not a part-time, high school kid that says he's an Instagram coach.
They have the poofy hair in the front, and then they have
the mushroom haircut.
And then they have the earrings, and then they also, when they're powerlifting, they're holding onto a cross. And
okay. But anyway, you can get online coaching, and it's just pennies a day. It's like, I don't even know what it is, like $20 or $30 a month. It's a huge bargain. And there's, like I said, there's hours of seminars. There's got to be 10 seminars on there, ranging from Laura Phelps' powerlifting seminar to my powerlifting seminar to Nick's overhead press, and there's a whole bunch of other ones.
Huge library.
It's a bargain.
Awesome. And another thing I heard or saw about you, Nick, was this thing called Tsunami Bar.
Unbelievable.
What the hell is that?
So Murph introduced me to the Tsunami Bar because he had the relationship with the guys, so like the William Strength guys who also invented the Tsunami Bar. But I started kind of using it, and I realized that when I started using the Tsunami Bar, if at all time using it, if I'm incorrect in my form, I'm gonna get humbled and it's not gonna go the way. So it really reinforced the form. So I just kept adding more weight, and then I realized that even helped in my speed training and like really concentrating.
It was designed for speed.
Yeah, well, I didn't necessarily. I just saw, hey, this thing's floppy.
Yeah, it's floppy.
So this thing looks like a super floppy wet noodle, basically.
Yeah, it looks. If you look at it, you'd say that's a piece of plastic. There's no way it can hold that weight. If you look at his videos online and some of the comments that people put up, it's just It's so stupid, you know. They're just idiots. They have no idea what the internet's one of the worst places in the world.
Yeah.
But
What do you mean? People are like, oh, like you're an idiot for using
Well,
it.
no, there's like fake weight, like you're not really doing anything. But
that's stupid. That's dangerous.
But even just the act of controlling all the oscillation is even a workout.
Sure.
And then when I was saying before, like the speed training, just really reinforce everything. And then I was even playing the tsunami bar before every world record. That was like almost my last training. It was like the cap.
I really kind of feel like that's one of the keys to your training is that bar. I'd see a success because it's so there's two. I get asked questions a lot on Tsunami and Bambell. I have a great relationship with both Jim from Bambell and Robbie from Tsunami.
What's the second word you're saying?
Bambell. So it's a bamboo bar.
So
it's called bamboo, but
the earthquake bar. So any bar that shakes is a natural disaster bar.
Yeah,
right? Tsunami bar,
Tsunami bar. And so the Bambell bar, you would put. It's made out of a composite, but it looks like it's made out of bamboo because people started using West Side used to use sticks of bamboo, and they do floppy stuff. So Jim invented the bamboo bar, and it's. The two of them were designed for different purposes, but people kind of confuse them. So I did an extensive interview with Robbie and with Jim a couple of years ago on EliteFTS.com. I think it's What's That Bar For? But the Bambell bar was invented initially to rehab people because it shakes, but it doesn't shake in the same manner that the Tsunami bar shakes, right? Tsunami bar whips up and down.
Yep.
The bamboo bar, it's oscillations all over, front, back, sideways, up and down. And you have to control that oscillation, and it just makes everything work a lot harder. You can train speed with the Bambell bar. It was really not designed for that. And the Tsunami bar was designed to improve speed. And the floppiness is different, and they're two unbelievable products for different goals, right? But they're really, really great products, made in USA too, by two really cool dudes.
And so there's just, I forget how many tubes. There's like 3 plastic tubes within one actual Tsunami bar. So they do put a lot of work in. And then even like they keep sending more prototypes over. So then we have like extremely long ones. So I still have to like try that out on different items, but I have to go pretty heavy for it to bend at least 400, 500 pounds for the prototype, the Super Max, they're trying to call it. Yeah. But it's, I think it's one of the kind of keys to my training, but especially lately, it's just been fine tuning a lot of the items, but even kind of starting out, it reinforced all my overhead form. And
if you even think about using that with your lockout, when you drop under that, if your trap's on up and your head's not through, and that's flopping all over the place, you're not going to lock it out. It's almost easier going back to a barbell. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to your deadlifting plateau you had.
Sure. So the plateau, a lot of it was, I think I pulled 715 with an enormous hitch. So I would hitch, but then I went on a journey of trying to like really fix my deadlift form because I wasn't doing a good job using my hamstrings, getting my hips down below. And then depending on the contest, you never have like a max deadlift. I always train my deadlift towards the actual competition. So it could be a side handle car deadlift. It could be a 13-inch deadlift. There could not be a deadlift. There could be a squat event. So I never really got a chance to really max it out. But when I started doing more variations and doing more accessory work and getting my hips down, that's where I really started seeing results. But also, what do you mean? You think I should join on the deadlift train?
No, I think that I'm a conjugate guy. I'm a West Side conjugate guy. It sounds like you started doing specialty exercises the way we would do.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, that's probably where I saw the most improvement was when I started doing kind of the variations and additional accessory work. But for a while,
what do you think is the number one piece of accessory work that you did to help?
Well, for the longest time, people were like, use your hamstrings when you deadlift. I'm like, well, I can't use my hamstrings if I don't actually have hamstrings. So I had to build up the hamstrings. Were you saying my favorite?
What do you think is the accessory?
Yeah, how do you build up your hamstrings?
Well, I do like the leg curls and all, but I did like the reverse hyper lock. I use that kind of throughout, but 13-inch deadlifts are probably a huge variation that I like. Hip thrusts every so often.
You doing glute ham raises?
Glute ham, yes.
Okay, just curious. I just like to find out what people with success did, what they think is their, interesting to find out what you would use. You know what I mean?
But I think the lockout, I was always great with speed off the floor, but the lockout was tough. So 13-inch deadlifts is what helped me kind of really fix that.
Yeah, makes sense.
And how did you? So you said that your issue was you weren't getting your hips close enough to the floor. Like, is this something a coach told you, or did you realize it yourself?
I think I had some help. I think even I just got pointed. I just keep being pointed out. I think Matt Murphy the last few years pointed that out.
Hollywood Matt Murphy.
Hollywood
Matt Murphy.
Well, of course, great member here.
No relation. But we are brothers from another mother.
He was just saying that the hips are high, and then I just tried to do a more conscious effort keeping my hips low. But I've also was trying to be. I need my shins to be kind of over the bar. Sometimes people should probably keep the shins kind of vertical. I think depending on your leverages,
It depends on the length of your limbs.
But I was getting some wrong advice. I had to be behind the bar and all, and that was kind of hurting my back and hurting my progress. So I had to change some things.
The thing with the deadlift is the deadlift in particular, the squat too, but a lot of people don't understand that the perfect position for me might be the worst position for him. Everything depends on the length of your limbs, where your attachments are. There's a guideline that we want you to look like, but it's not the right thing for everybody. Not everybody can get their shins vertical on a deadlift, and not everybody can get their shoulders behind the bar.
Right.
Plus, with the Olympic lifting background that you have,
very quad dominant.
It's shoulders over the bar, right? So, not a lot of hamstring off the floor, some, but it's that's programmed into you. So you might have to change your form, right?
Yeah.
People don't consider this law of individual differences. That's like rule 1 if you train people.
Yeah. Okay. So imagine someone doesn't lift and they want to be strong.
So if somebody's brand new, I always like to, especially kids, we like to get them to master their own body weight on things first. Get used to handling their own body weight. Primary rule of strength and conditioning: strengthen the torso before you strengthen the limbs. So you get people going on push-ups, pull-ups with the band-assisted pull-ups, or modified push-ups where your hands are on your upper body's elevated, things like that. You got to start low and slow and progress up from there. But it would always be, try to handle some body weight stuff first, and then progress to, different things, depending on what you have access to, right? So if they're going to go to a gym, start them with some goblet squats and maybe some just super basic stuff, back raises, goblet squats, some type of press, some type of row.
How do you feel about machines for beginners?
I don't. Barring physical injury for a healthy person, I'm not a fan of machines. And you notice we don't have a lot in here. I think your body is the ultimate piece of resistance. And if you body, a lot of from wrestling, a lot of body weight stuff you guys did is amazing, right?
Absolutely.
But I wouldn't recommend machines for somebody unless they had something orthopedic where they can't do things and they have to work around it. I think you should be trained in 3 dimensions, 3 planes of movement.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Doesn't mean there's no place for them. It's just, that's detail stuff. Like, I want to get a sick quad pump or a sick bi pump, so I'm going to go on that stride machine. So
I think even before you get in the gym, like, why does this person need to be strong? I think there has to be a need to get strong. A lot of times people want, but unless you put yourself in need, that's when things actually get done. I think the other component, so they're just entering the gym and all, I think it's just touching everything and getting a sense. I think figuring out what you like to do within the gym is important, because there's a lot of items even in there. I'll still do them, but I'm not a huge fan. So figure out what kind of what your draws. Huh?
I'm not shaking my head. Sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out kind of what draws you to the gym, why you want to get stronger. But I would say almost like touch everything and just kind of be a student of the game. If you want to, if your ultimate goal is to be stronger, the best or the strongest version of themselves, you probably gotta touch everything and kind of be a student. What Murph was saying, just a little touch, but I don't think it's a bad thing to start off light with the basic strength compound movements and then work accessories and all the light lifts. But I think there should be some component of working compound lifts and then some hypertrophy, starting putting some muscle. I think that's probably the first step, is to at least put maybe 5-10 pounds on. Just about, that could take like 6 months or so, depending on the individual.
Yeah. So what Nick was just talking about, if you look at my mentor, Dr. Fred Hatfield, he came up with what he calls his 7 granddaddy rules for training people. And what he's talking about is the Cinderella phase and the 7 granddaddy rules. Josh Bryan talks about this stuff a lot on his Instagram page. And the Cinderella phase is like, you go to the gym, and if you're a trainer or a coach, you want to guide them through and show them different things that are productive for them. And if they like a certain variation of an exercise better than the one that you think they should do, like if they like front squats better than squats, it's not a back squat, kids. Some douchebag made that up a couple of years ago. It's a fucking squat. But if they like front squats better than squats, let them do front squats, right? So you're going to, like he said, you're going to try to find the things that you like, because if you like doing it, you're going to do it more. Yeah. Right? It's a squat.
All right. That's helpful. Kind of along the lines of I don't know, a lot of people making shit up, or I see on my Instagram a lot, it's like fucking like 16-year-old kids or whatever, 18-year-old kids. The fucking like that pisses me off. But so Nick,
we don't have a lot in here. We don't have.
No, we don't tolerate
I think
that shit.
we would probably call him a Gen Z lifter. It's probably what we have. We have a few of them coming in, but we don't have. There's not a lot of them. Or they don't come in the nighttime.
We don't have a lot of douchebags here. I don't tolerate douchebaggery. You know, a couple of years ago, we had some kids that had really good intentions, but they didn't really know the culture. And we kind of, instead of kicking them out, we kind of guided them, and they ended up being really great members, you know. But, you know, anyway, we don't tolerate douchebaggery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, how would you describe the culture? It
is not exactly what the original TPS was, but it's a pretty strong culture. It's a little bit, it's every gym now, people are on their fucking phones in between sets, and I see that. And if I didn't need the money to keep the doors open, I would smash their fucking phones with the dumbbell and throw them off the wall. Mm-hmm. But the culture here is more. That's the one thing I hate about the culture. But that's the generation. Right? The phones, my phone stays in my office when I train. You don't need your phone when you train. Mm-hmm. If you need to look at your phone and look at fucking cat videos, right, in between sets, Eddie Cohen didn't look at his phone to be the ultimate powerlifting strongman beast. Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't look at his phone, right? Anyway, the culture is, I mean, I want to say it's super supportive, right? I mean, that's one thing. It's like a family. Even with the members that we might not know, it's not, you go to some of the commercial gyms, it's a meat market where people are hunting. And I don't tolerate that. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of at a loss to describe the culture.
It's always, when I come in the nighttime, it's always supportive. I come here because, of course, Russ is always here, Matt's always here. We got the front desk guys, and then there's 7 or 8 guys that I've trained with the last 5 or 6 years. There's very few guys that have been here all 10 years like I have.
We have people actually since 1999, since the first location, that still train here.
But I think it's just a little more kind of supportive, and usually I'll see some new faces in there. And then when they kind of keep continuing, kind of do this, like I start taking notice of them because they've been there longer, let's say longer than 6-8 months. Then I'm starting to let out like a helping hand and seeing what they're all about and things like that, and then push them to a competition. But a lot of it's like whatever kind of goal you're looking to achieve. I think everybody's pretty supportive in terms of like helping that. But we've had a nice influx of strongmen lately.
Yeah,
of course,
Strongman's coming back.
Strongman back.
Yeah, so it's funny. We were the first. Us and Highland Strength, like I said, Artie's place were the first 2 strongman gyms in the greater Boston area. And then I had Eric worked here before he owned Titan, so now it's us and Titan. But we kind of had the strongman scene kind of go away a little bit. When I stopped competing and training strongman, Eric took it over here. And then when Eric left to open his own place, most people went and left with Eric, which is totally cool. I'm okay with that, right? So the strongman community here kind of died down because I wasn't coaching it anymore because of injuries. I can't do it, So. But it's starting to come back now, and that's probably your fault.
Maybe a little bit.
Which is totally okay.
Could you talk maybe a little bit about what are the positive impacts besides your body on working out in strongman and powerlifting?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, it's if you get under an 800-pound squat and you take it down and put it up, you get a lot of confidence, and I don't think I'm speaking for myself. You don't need to, do this and. Aside from the health benefits of it, there's a lot of mental benefits of it because you can, if you can challenge yourself. And Dave Tate wrote a book about this, Under the Bar. It's a great book. It's really short, and it kind of explains a lot of the stuff. But you learn the ability to overcome challenges. When faced with the challenge, you don't run away from it. You go straight into it, or you have a plan to overcome it, right? Because if you're working on a training program to bring your overhead press up, that's a plan to overcome a challenge. You want to add something?
Goal orientation. So usually you set different goals. So like I want to compete in this contest. I'm going to compete in these series of contests throughout the year. I want to get bigger. I want to get faster. I want to get leaner. You start working out the goal orientation within the gym, and you apply that goal orientation to the rest of your life, to your business, to your personal life, to your family. You start applying the different areas towards that area. But also, I think we mentioned it before, I think it does give you a big sense of accomplishment. Let's just say for myself, I never thought I could win. He thought I could win World's Strongest Man, but I didn't necessarily think I could win World's Strongest Man. I really thought I had my sight on like this the national level, being like a top level amateur was kind of what I was first setting my sights on. So I never in my dreams thought I would be on ESPN and be World's Strongest Man one day as well. So now that I've achieved that, like what else can I achieve? I already did the impossible. Now,
What night you do a movie star, action
Say again?
hero?
That's
you need to be an
next.
action hero.
That is true.
Can somebody from Hollywood look at this fucking kid, please, and give him a $10 million check for his first movie?
You know, I might have to shave the beard again, but
No, just
no,
it's,
keep
either
the
way.
beard.
Either
All
way.
right, either beard or
You know,
not
keep it
bearded.
for the winter, shave it off for the warm
Well,
weather.
that's what I'm going to gain weight. So yeah, right now I'm gaining weight for being a heavyweight. So I have the heavyweight beard.
Yeah,
So,
talk about real quick. So you won World's Strongest Man 105 kilogram class.
Yes.
Right. And now you said that you're going to start competing in the open. Is that
Sure
right?
am.
Okay. Tell me about that.
I originally thought I could be 105 kilo forever and do the kind of like the weight cuts. But this year, in the last probably 18 months or so, I realized that I'm dieting year round. I'm just pretty much it's just meal prep food after meal prep food. If I do sneak in a cheat meal, I blow up.
Was that hampering your recovery?
What?
The dieting all the time?
Probably, especially if getting closer to competition, I would have to skip meals in order to start leaning up. So I realized I'm starting to get bigger. I am kind of towards the top end of like in terms of my frame of the weight class. But at this point too, I've already achieved everything. I think if maybe I was still searching for a major title like America's Strongest Man or World's Strongest Man, I would probably be competing. But since I already have those titles, the next frontier is the big boys. So originally I went on another podcast saying that the 105 kilo class is kind of like the stepping stone to become an open class. And as much even I got a lot of like notice and like notoriety from being a great 105 kilo athlete, it still is not exactly what the attention that opens to get, like especially in terms of the crowds, even the opportunities. So as much as I enjoy the 105 kilo class, I think there's so much more opportunity being a heavyweight. And even the compliment wise, every time I put on 10 pounds,
Like, you look jacked, dude.
Yeah, I get it from all angles. So I think that's just something that I want to try. Just take off the regulators and see how strong I can get for my personal self, and then see how that matches up against the best of the world.
Okay. How does height affect strongman?
I got this one.
Height? Sure.
I got this one.
You did the first stab.
Yeah, so got me up, bro. So that's when I competed, there was no weight classes when I first started. It was open.
Shit.
And I competed anywhere between 275 and 310
Okay.
at 6 feet.
Okay.
And I showed up, I was always the smallest the smallest guy there.
Because guys that do this are like 6'6", 6'8".
So I'd be competing, and we had, I want to say, I can't remember the highest box, but we had 60-inch boxes in stones, and a lot of times I couldn't reach it. Couldn't reach it. And there's a lot of that height is a big advantage on a lot of events, particularly stones. Although the box heights are lower now than they were in my day, right? Yeah. So
They still have some 60 inches.
yeah, but I don't wonder. I think there was a 72 at one show.
Oh, that's really tall.
Might have been 68. It was high. It was more than 60 anyway. So the height's a big factor, right? Because if you're 6'6", you can carry 260, 280, 300, 320 a lot easier than a guy that's 6 feet.
Yep.
When you're trying to keep that weight on at 6 feet tall,
Right.
it's brutal. And you're out of breath. It's hard to keep your conditioning up. And it's you have that reach too. So being tall, having that reach to get around the big stones and the Husafell stone and stuff like that. It's substantially, it's an advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
So the height is an advantage.
So on the weight class scene, of course you have to make weight. So it's a little fair in terms of at some point, everybody has to be 231 or 90 kilos or 80 kilos, whatever the weight class is. I fell right in the middle for the 105 kilo class. So there was always kind of taller guys and shorter guys. The shorter guys are always going to be more static, so they had their events. The tall guys always had their events.
Yeah.
There was one gentleman named Josh Isley. I was in a group with him when I did the Clash on the Coast 2021. He zeroed the static events, but won a lot of the moving events and
He probably placed
athletic
pretty well,
events.
right?
Yeah, and then there's a loading event, and of course he did really good on the loading event. So he ended up taking second. I won the group, but there was another guy that was really static, so he did really well in the static event. So it was interesting the battle between the two heights. But that's on a weight class basis.
Right.
Now you get into the heavyweight scene. In the past, there was that run where it was just either Brian Shaw or Zadrunas that won, and that was like 4 or 5 years in a row. But that's kind of changed up recently with a gentleman named Alexei Novikov from Ukraine. So he's probably 6'1", 308, 310. He started probably strongman. I think his grandfather was in his grandfather was the head of the Ukrainian Association for Strongman. So he's been around Strongman since he was like 7 or 8 years old. So he grew up. Yeah, probably 25, 26 now, just about. I competed with him I think he's like 25. But he's just been around it for so long. But as we're seeing a lot more of the kind of like the athletic strongman. So even the guy I had on the podcast, Vitalis Lalas, if the events line up, he's going to be a world beater. He ended up winning like 8 or 9 different international shows. So I think sometimes it comes down to the event selection. But for the most part, if you're going to be a shorter strongman, you're usually going to have your strengths, and then you gotta hope that you can kind of manage your weaknesses going into a big contest.
And you mentioned it, and we should talk about it briefly. Your Strongman Winner's Circle podcast. You started that like a year ago, right? Yes, sir. So can you tell me about what's going on there?
Yeah, so I try to have all different weight class men, all the way from the 80 kilos up to the heavyweights, and it's just a good way to just kind of highlight. I just have my kind of, I usually like try to prepare and try to do a different angle than some of the other kind of podcasts. But usually it's just trying to kind of bring light. But lately I've been using it as my own tool to kind of learn different things, learn from different people. If I find someone interesting, have them on. But I think it's a good way to network and just be in touch with strongmen all over the world.
And Murph, you have at least an active Instagram page for TPS Malden.
Somewhat active.
How has kind of social media impacted powerlifting and strongman?
Oh God!
Oh geez.
Social media is probably the greatest evil that's been thrust upon mankind.
Double-edged sword.
And I can't stop looking at Instagram, even though I know it's poison. And the internet's the same way. The internet is one of the greatest things and one of the worst things that's ever happened to society. But with social media, I think that in today's society, common sense is lacking. Okay, so we'll start with that. And the ability to disseminate shit from good information is lacking in a lot of people, especially younger people, because they're young, right? You don't have a lot of life experience. So there's a lot of people that are projected as experts on social media, especially in powerlifting, and they're fucking nitwits. You know, and then there's a lot of really good coaches on there too, but you don't know who's who. I mean, you know who's who, and you know you may, but the things that get popularized, and the information that's out there, there's some really, if you just use Instagram for one, there's some really, really valuable information on Instagram from really smart people, and then there's probably a greater amount of fucking imbeciles that they should just have their throats cut because they're a poison on society. Was I too harsh with that?
No, but a lot of times the snake oil salesman, like the great example right now is the Liver King. He's gonna get more notoriety than someone that's been, let's say, a PhD, exercise science background that actually is putting out good information. Usually, the thing that's right on the money is not sexy, so that doesn't sell. The shortcuts sell. Well, so the snake oil salesman.
I agree 100%. But I also think the Dunning-Kruger effect is real, and it applies.
Who's Dunning-Kruger?
Dunning-Kruger basically it means you're too stupid to know that you don't know what you're talking about. Okay. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is real, and it's all over and everything. But I think in the Instagram community of powerlifting coaches in particular, it's a big fucking deal. You know. So if you and usually people that do that, they project themselves like they know what they're talking about. I mean, I could be completely full of shit and write the worst programs in the world, right? Because I believe that I write a good program. But the results speak for themselves, right? You know that you know how to train because the results speak for themselves, right?
Yes.
And you look at you see a kid that he's 21 years old and he did a meet and he 900-pound total and now he's a fucking powerlifting coach.
Right.
Really, dude?
Yeah.
You know, so it's, and people will follow them. You know, I can name a couple of people, but I won't, that have a lot of clients. And I've seen the programs, they all get the same Excel spreadsheet and they're all doing 90% plus on the 3 lifts 3 times a week. And they're all hurt and they don't understand what's going on. And I'm not listening to you, boomer. All right, don't listen to me. You know, so.
Do you have advice for people, that are more beginners, how they can disentangle the bullshit? Would you say just look at the results of the person?
Yeah, well, one thing is
sometimes those guys will get them interested into the sport because there's something appealing about them. If they're Jack, if they're handsome.
Well, the other thing
Jack
is
and handsome.
Well, that's the other thing with social media is I could have 5 million followers tomorrow if I want, but I don't. I don't buy followers. I have about almost 6,000 followers, but they're active and they all signed up for my page. I guarantee you that if I go and buy followers, and people are going to say, "Oh shit, I should follow him and listen to him because he's got 5 million followers," right? It's social media. There's so much good about it, but so much bad. So for advice, I mean, how do you give advice on that? Like, how do you tell somebody, the easy advice is look for somebody that knows what they're talking about, but how do you know? I don't know the answer to that question. Don't look at the number of followers.
Like for instance, if they started like off Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's just going to talk to who's popular and who's in the stream. Sometimes he has some good scientists that he brings on.
Yeah, I don't think Joe's really put on anything that's in bad.
Because but like even like Strongman, I think he hasn't really he had Robert Oberst and like Rob Kearney, and of course Rob Kearney being a Massachusetts guy, Rob is full of great information. But for the most part, I think you just got to be in there and you got to take everything with a grain of salt, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, where I'm trying to go is how do we tell a new person that's looking at this how to disseminate the wheat from the chaff? It's hard to do that.
Just gotta be entrenched with it, and sometimes you're gonna make mistakes because you followed the wrong guy.
Yeah, but doesn't mean how do we give them the advice to not follow the wrong person? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's
life.
just
How do you tell them how you tell someone to have a great life without taking a chance?
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe one thing is to look at who they're affiliated with.
What do you mean by that?
So if you look, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I'm affiliated with EliteFTS.com. Look at the list of coaches on there. I can't believe that I'm on that list. I can't believe I'm on that team. I'm a fat kid from the projects. I'm on a team with these guys. These greats like Steve Cohn, Eddie Calkins, Dave Tate, Jimmy Wendler, Alan Cosgrove, Chad Ikes. There's a million of them. There's so many names. You know what I mean? They're just unbelievable coaches. You look at like 1020 with Brian. He came from, he's a great coach. He was my coach. And then you also might find some kid with 500 followers that's 25 years old that actually is a good coach that doesn't have and then on the same token, you'll find another one that's got 1 million followers that's a terrible fucking coach because he bought them. How do you know? So I say really kind of look at who their affiliations are with if you can.
And probably the results of their clients, if they post the results of their clients.
Yeah, that's another good thing too, which a lot of those guys, you don't see their results, And I don't think that you necessarily have to have a coach that is exceptionally strong. You know what I mean? They probably should have been at one point in their life, right? But there's look at Belichick, right? Belichick probably wasn't a good football player, right?
No.
Good coach.
Great coach.
Right? And that doesn't mean that your strength coach shouldn't be strong. He probably should have been really fucking strong, right? But it's, I don't know that I would go to somebody that had less than, 10 years experience. I don't think I would, unless they were somebody that I'm not saying this to build my business, but if you come here and one of my coaches has been only coaching for 5 years, that's because I vetted them and I'm letting them work here because I trust them, So if you go to, for example, I took a course with a non-strength related company called Haley Strategic. And Haley, Travis is one of the greatest people in the world at what he does. And I went there and there's probably 5 instructors. And I didn't know any of the instructors, but and one of them was probably in his mid-20s. I had no qualms that these people were more than qualified to teach me what I paid for $1,000 for 3 days, because Travis said, you work for me and you work standing here with me. So it's kind of, if your coach doesn't have a lot of experience, but they're working under the blessing of somebody that is well respected, you're probably okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, you mentioned before, like there's some individuals that do a strongman meet, do a powerlifting meet, and now they think they're qualified to be a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I guess those are the guys you just have to avoid if your guys are listening and watching.
Yeah. So then one of the things too is the personal training industry. It's now a lot of us don't call ourselves personal trainers anymore. We call ourselves coaches. I call myself a coach. I've been doing that since day one. I'm a strength coach, even though I do personal training to pay the bills, right? In the 80s and the 90s, this was like real estate, right? So you could have a professional real estate broker that knows the fucking business, right? Or you could have some douchebag that's got a part-time job that wants to just make a couple of bucks that has no idea how to do the business, right? Everybody goes into real estate, right? And they may not know what they're doing, right? Personal training's the same way. People, you can go to a job right now and get hired at a commercial gym with nothing, and people think you're an expert.
Jeez.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's true.
I believe you. Another question kind of with social media. I know a lot of my friends are on social media, and they'll they'll go to the gym, they'll work out, they'll deadlift their whatever 300 pounds, 400 pounds, 500 pounds, whatever amount is good for them. You know, a couple of years ago they're deadlifting half of that, but then they'll go on social media and see some 20-year-old kid pull sumo on like 800 pounds or something with like
Are
8
they
inch
real
range of
plates?
motion. Who knows? But the point is, it can demotivate people because they'd be like, oh man, like instead of being happy about lifting so much weight, they're like, oh, like I'm
You
no
wanna
good
take
at
this or
all.
you want
Sure,
me to-
I think you just can't compare yourself. You don't know that person's journey, how long they've been in the sport. They could have already been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and that's the progression that they made. It was interesting. I used to try to compare myself to like Dmitry Klokov, almost like the best 105s when I
always did.
even like the best 105s in other sports. So I was like relating, even though I was a 105 strongman, I was looking at the 105 powerlifters.
I saw the dude all the
105
time growing up.
Yeah,
It's
105
crazy.
weightlifters, and of course he was a huge. Dimitri was a huge kind of motivator, and he came down for
Yeah, he was.
so we got to meet him in person. So I always compare myself to those guys, but I always kind of knew that there was a process in there. So I think a lot of times is that if they put in that same type of work, that same type of process, they'll probably get the results. But you can't compare yourself right out of the bat because you don't know exactly what they've done.
I don't
leading
think
up
that
to
everybody
point.
has the ability to be at that level.
We mean
Like a
to me-
Klokov. I don't think every person in the world, no matter how much work they put in, has the ability to be Nick Cambi and Novak Press.
But
you know what I
everybody,
mean?
but everybody has
not-
the ability to be
the best they can be.
best
100%.
version of themselves.
Right.
But where does the best version of themselves line up?
Correct.
At the end of the day.
Right. So I think that when you're looking at the social media, that I never really compared myself to others. I always was in competition with myself, but I did try to keep par with my peer group. So my peer group is guys that are, squatting 1,000 pounds, benching 700 pounds. And I was always chasing them for whatever reason, right? But I wasn't trying to compare myself to local meat lifters. I was trying to be with the people that I affiliate with, right? But I think you need to be self-motivated. But I think that if we go strictly back to social media, and you might get some backlash and comments on this, but I can tell you for a fact, I've been at photo shoots where they're using fake weights. Fake weights are real. Everything on Instagram, kids, isn't real. So if you see a 120-pound girl deadlifting 900 pounds and the bar's not bending like this and her head's not exploding, it's probably not real weights. So there really is, there's stuff like that you got to think about. And also when you look at the social media stuff, you see this all the time. How many takes does it take for the person to get that one video right? Like I put a video up the other night of me talking while assembling and disassembling a gun for the gun company. And I had to do that 15 times because I messed the words up, not the assembly and disassembly, right? I messed up the words. So how many attempts do you think some of these videos make? They need to make that video look perfect, right?
Right.
You don't know that. You don't see that.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is, even if it only took one take, how much work, like Nick said, did it take them to get to the point where they could do that at once? So some of those people are legitimate. I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of that stuff not legitimate because everything on the internet is not real.
Yeah. So don't compare yourself to the other lifters in the end of the day. I think that's especially kind of start. But you have your idols, have the people that inspire you. But in the end of the day, you can't compare them and feel inferior just because they've been doing it longer. If that's their specialty.
Well, what I can say is being in physical gyms, like it can be intimidating for a lot of people even to come into a gym when they're beginners or less advanced than other people. In my experience, lifters are like some of the most kind people I know. Like everyone is just like no one is born deadlifting 1,000 pounds. Maybe they were born and they would grow up and be able to deadlift 500 or something, but everyone has some sort of journey. And what I've experienced is that lifters are super kind people.
Yeah, I think the as a community, the strength sports as a whole, right? A douchebag move as a whole, are probably the most approachable and supportive people that you're going to find. And like if you go to a powerlifting meet or a strongman show, nobody cares how much you're lifting. They care that you are lifting. And again, strongman, more than I think any other sport, me and Nick are in the same weight class. I just competed in the farmer's walk. I made it 80 feet, and then I'm running with him now, cheering him to go 85 feet. That's not something that you see outside of the strength sports.
Right.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding, they don't do that. Bodybuilding,
No.
they're all in the same room and they all hate each other.
Yeah. So it's really the strength sports as a whole, strongman, powerlifting, weightlifting. It's much more supportive, and we want new people to come in. We want to help them. There's Dave's motto with the lead FDS is live, learn, and pass on. And
No,
we all want to do that.
Paying it forward too. So I'm at where I'm at today because people took time out of their schedule, took time out of their lives to teach me how to be stronger, how to be a better person. And then we try to pass it on forward to other individuals that are starting out. So there's a lot of that paying that forward.
Yeah, and especially if you come to a gym like mine or like Eric's or like any of the others all over the country, places like this, if there's somebody of value in my gym, I want to help them because they represent my gym and you make my gym look better, you know? So.
And so along those lines of paying it forward, do you have any kind of goals that you want to achieve in the next few years, or where do you want Strongman in general to be in the next few years?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. I'm kind of out of Strongman. I love it, and it was one of my greatest passions, but I haven't been with Strongman show in probably 2 years, 3 years. I would love to see it grow.
Where do you want to see the strength community go?
I would like to see the strength community go back to where it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where it was not for everybody. I had more fun, and that sounds terrible as a coach to say, right? Because our job is to bring new lifters in. But what I've seen in the strength community is, and I'll probably get ripped for this here, but there's tourists. You have people like me that have sacrificed relationships and work and advancements at jobs to go and try to win a 20-cent trophy because it was more about lifting more than I ever did before. And it was, you went to a meet years ago and it's all savages because 50% were criminals and 50% were cops, right? That's what people always used to say. But it's like you walk into that warm-up room, you're like, I might get shanked in here. Seriously.
Really?
But it was people that were 100% dedicated to what they're doing. And at Nick's level, people are 100% dedicated to what they're doing. But I don't want to go to a meet and see somebody with fucking capes on their socks eating gummy bears before they walk up to deadlift 118 pounds. And then they do 2 meets and then they're out. And that's awful because I'm a meet promoter. But I would like to see the people that come in and do a meet get into it and make that their passion. So
you'd like
it's
to
kind of
see
like a dichotomy what I said, right? That's kind of sounds like I'm saying 2 different things, but I'm not.
You'd like it to grow, provided the people that come in respect the sport and care about the sport. Is that fair?
And respect the tradition of the sport.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it's improved over the past 2 or 3 years, I think. But you saw it. There's a lot of
been a lot of change in the last 10 years.
Tourists, not a big fan. I'm a huge fan of somebody stepping up and trying it. But you don't to lift. You don't need a $300 SDB belt and a pair of $200 Nike Romaleos and $150 elbow sleeves. You don't need your own bar. You don't need any of those things. You need to go to a gym. You'd probably get more if you paid for coaching from a reputable coach than if you spent $8,000 on gear. Right. You don't need it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if
that was pretty good.
I think I sounded like I contradicted myself, but in my mind it made sense.
On let's say on like a local level, like to see like kind of more strongman gyms, I would say more even like CrossFit gyms started adopting like more kind of strongman implements, bringing people into the sport. On a mid-level, just seeing what they're doing right now, building the different classes. The most opportunity ever for the weight class strongman to participate. There's like 3 or 4 different federations within the actual U.S. And on a pro level, we would want to see
some money.
Yeah, money, but more bring back, like for instance, America's Strongest Man back on TV. Like for instance, the Mohegan Sun Super Series was a huge event, and that used to be televised and all. So I think Strongman needs to get back on not just CBS Sports, but needs to get back on ESPN.
But if you look at guys, I don't mean to cut you off, but you look at guys my age, we grew up watching Franco run it with the refrigerator, and we all wanted to be those guys. We wanted to be Cass, and and that's the ABC Wide World of Sports. That was what everybody couldn't wait to see was that. And you watch Alexiev, this fat guy in this stupid singlet, ripping that weight off the floor in the weightlifting on Wide World of Sports, and that made a generation of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boys want to be the strongest man in the world, me included.
Why did it come off TV? Do you know?
For strongman, so it was right now on CBS News or CBS Sports. I think it was just more of the relationship. I think just ESPN didn't renew the contract and they went to the next thing, but they should have probably worked a little harder. And then just the organizer, I think just probably bad. The top promoters is doing a bad job handling those relationships with the media. But so we want to see, of course, more media. So being able to see more individuals be a professional strongman. So even on the 105 level, of course, I won the world's strongest man, but like the guys that I beat on the way there weren't necessarily full-time strongmen. The full-time strongmen are in the heavyweight levels, so that's their job. That's who the guys I want to compete against. So that's
because that's another thing too. Is remind me to say understanding, but what I said is money. I don't mean just prize money, right? The pros should be compensated as professional athletes.
How much will the pro strongman win in a competition?
Ooh, I think right now the biggest prize pool, the Ukrainian Novikov, I think he won $130,000 at the Rogue.
Okay,
That's
for
terrible.
first place.
That's terrible,
But
and it's awesome that Rogue was able to give that much money, but it's terrible.
And
for professional
what about
athletes.
someone who would come in like 5th place there?
$100?
$100
in a six-pack?
I think it was like 8,800 or something like that.
So if you were perpetually winning like 5th place at pro strongman events, you'd basically get no money from that, right?
you would need you couldn't just live off of
Couldn't live off
competition
of it.
fees.
No,
You would
'cause
have
you
to have
just-
sponsors and
okay.
other revenue lines.
Okay.
They're just the plane tickets. So that 40 grand, 50 grand you make in place in 5th is enough to cover your travel fees and hotels and stuff. But so when I said money, Nick, what I meant is not just prize money,
Production.
but so why do people watch football? There's billions of dollars in it, right? And if I think if somebody invested some money into promoting strongman properly, that they would get more viewership and therefore get more advertisers and bring more money into the sport. Let me jump back onto comprehension. So what he was saying too is that it's when you go to like we had a kid at a powerlifting meet last 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago when we did it, and he deadlifted like 650 or something like that, and the crowd thought it was awesome, but they didn't grasp the fact that he weighed 150 or 160 pounds. They can't wrap that. So if you say 600 pounds, people don't know the difference between, my mother used to tell people I could press 1,000 pounds over my head.
Nice.
I mean, I could, but so people don't have any comprehension of what kind of weight they're lifting, and they get attracted to the heavy guys because the heavy guys are lifting something ridiculous, right? But they don't understand that lightweight guy or that middleweight guy is lifting the exact same weight proportionately for their body weight, right? So I think some more comprehension has to be brought in too by the announcers and the promoters and things like that. It's just as impressive. Like Candace over there, she had almost a 500-pound deadlift in the 132s.
Wow.
And close to a 500-pound squat in the 132s, like a 300-pound bench, right? And you hear that, but you're like, well, she was in the 132s.
That's crazy.
It's 1,000 times more impressive when you hear that. But, when you hear that, well, she squatted 500 pounds. Well,
That's close to 4 times body weight.
no, she's all time. But it's like people don't grasp how impressive that is. They just hear 400 pounds. They can't tell the difference between, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They don't get it.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you can think of that can be done to improve that comprehension?
That would require a little more thought. But
People could
so
just.
when I announce, I MC a lot of shows. I've MC'd a lot of strongman shows, powerlifting shows. I make it a point to educate the crowd.
Yeah, speak to the crowd.
You got to speak to the crowd. Like, I'm like, listen, I don't understand. This kid just lifted 4.5 times his body weight. That's the equivalent of a heavyweight lifting 1,400 pounds. And the crowd's like, oh, so I think kind of things like that is something you could do. And, maybe in the social media marketing, they could, somehow include that. I don't know. That's not my department. But I think comprehension of the sport and the just the level and the impressiveness of what the athletes are doing with the human body, because the strongman is, you're doing things that the body's not supposed to be able to do, right? People aren't supposed to be able to do that.
No.
Absolutely. That's why it's interesting to me, at least.
It's a freak show. It should
It's
be.
crazy. You're superheroes.
Yeah, it needs to be a freak show.
I look at you're a circus dumbbell overhead press. It's just like I every time I see that, my elbow hurts because I would just snap in half. It's like, holy shit! Like, how do you do that? It's
Well,
crazy.
he didn't start with that heavy dumbbell. He started with a lighter one.
Right. Yeah.
I had trained on like a million different dumbbells. Like whatever dumbbell that was the good we got used that day. I was gonna hit it. That was the goal. But just back on Murph's point, I think again, strongman's almost at an all-time high. But again, there's always more things that we can do.
It could go so much
perfect
higher.
world. Yeah, exactly. But as long as we keep putting in a good effort, it'll keep growing.
Yeah, and they tried doing it with powerlifting, like when they had the Mountaineer Cup and things like that. I love powerlifting. It's one of my equal passions. But it's fucking boring.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's boring.
Strongman is
if
almost like football with how you can sell
Strongman
it.
is exciting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's you have two strength sport, and weightlifting's boring too. It's awesome. And powerlifting's awesome, but it's boring.
Do you ever see any of the shows? Like a Giants Live right now is doing a good job with arena shows, and they're selling out arenas out in England. So if they could bring an arena style show back to the U.S., Brian Shaw did it a little
And they
bit.
need lights and fireworks and all and pyro and stuff like that.
the pyro.
They need all that shit, and that's money. Again, that's money, right?
Yeah.
You want to see. Like, I think I wouldn't mind seeing strongman, not WWE, but like a WWE event where the guy comes out or the girl comes out and they announce them, and then they walk down and they're playing music and there's lights and shit going off. I mean, I don't mean the choreographed part of it. I just mean the production of it, the spectacle. You know,
Well, I know some years ago they had sumo wrestling in Strongman.
Oh, that was 2004 in the Bahamas. Yeah, that was fun. I was always a proponent for sumo wrestling.
well, you're a wrestler.
Yeah.
Then there's guys like me that quit BJJ because they didn't like having a pair of balls in their face.
I pretty much ran through my questions. Is there anything that I didn't talk about with you guys that you'd like to bring up?
There's no shortcuts in strength sports and also in life. It's consistency. And now that if you're interested in getting into strength sport, there's more information than ever. So it's all online, but like we were talking about before, look for reputable sources. So spend a little more time than of course, than just the Instagram. Go do your research before diving into a program.
Yeah. And Nick, did you want to run through your social media stuff?
Sure. It's Cambi, if you want to find me and of course follow my journey, especially as I travel and compete against the largest heavyweights in the world. So I'm Cambi Dude on Instagram, Cambi Dude on YouTube, Cambi on TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok.
And Murph, did you want
What
to run
about
through?
World's Strongest Wiener?
And then I have World's Strongest Wiener, which is my dachshund. She's 2.5 years old, and
She's awesome.
And she won that title because I just said so.
Right.
And Murph, it's TPS Malden.
TPS Malden on Instagram, and then TPS Method on Instagram, and then TPSM Tactical on Instagram, which is another one of my companies. And
then totalperformancesports.com.
TotalPerformanceSports.com and TPSMethod.com. Two different websites. TotalPerformanceSports.com is the gym's website. It's probably only good if you're local. And TPSMethod.com is you can get our remote coaching and programs and videos on there, and that's a lot of free stuff too on there.
Yeah, and everything will be down in the video description, so you can just check it out below. Thank you again a lot.
That was awesome. It was awesome being on, dude. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.